Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we are going to be using the Fall Swag, the Layering Vintage labels, and then the Inside Sentiments Comfort, also stamps and dies. So today's card is a sympathy card, and I'm creating it because I needed it. My sister-in-law's grandfather passed away, and so we needed a sympathy card for her and her family. Here, you saw me what I was doing. I was just kind of trying to get the sizing for which label I was going to need. And then I'm just going to go ahead and stamp these down. I'm using both of these images today. And I'm going to stamp them in our Intense Black ink, which is safe for alcohol markers because I will be coloring it with my Copic markers. I'm sure this is all shocking news to you guys because I don't ever color with Copic markers. I mean, this is a completely new medium for me. Anywho, I did stamp it twice because this is the first time I used this stamp set. I am really enjoying these little swags Honeybee has been coming out with. And this one, I kept the colors pretty subdued because obviously it's a sympathy card. There are things to take into consideration when you're creating a sympathy card. But I do plan on using this again in another card where I can color it really fun fall colors. So I will definitely be using this again. I like this image. So I chose more, like I said, subdued colors. So my color palette is not as bright as usual. I still think it's super pretty, but I'm definitely using more in the 50s, 70s, 90s, which means the colors are a little bit more desaturated. And just not as in your face. They just have a little bit more gray in them, which sounds like it would be ugly, but it's not. It's not. So we're going to do some coloring and we're going to talk about card design. So if you don't have a YouTube channel, which I think most people do not, I mean, there's a lot of us out here, but I think most people in card making don't necessarily make videos. There is a section in your analytics that talks about research, and it will kind of give you a little glimpse into the like the people that watch your videos, what they're kind of looking for. And one of the things that kept repeatedly coming up was card design. And I guess it's probably because nobody's talking about it, right? Like if you're new or if you feel a little stagnant, I guess you would be looking for something like that, but nobody is blatantly labeling their content as card design because most of us have been doing it for a long time. And so I kind of wanted to touch on that. As I have progressed in my figuring out what I'm doing as a full-time card maker, since I started doing this full time, there's been a couple of themes that I know that I want to return to. And so I guess card design is probably going to be one of them. So like we already kind of do like the stretch your stamps. I have a couple of videos for that because it's something I enjoy. And so I think I'm going to add card design to it if you guys are interested in hearing more about that. Today we're going to be talking about just some basics of kind of like balance and anchoring or grounding your images in the how I chose to do my layout. And it's a good basic layout. Like it's a solid basic layout for a lot of card design. So we'll talk about that more. And if you're here for that particular portion, you're going to want to jump to like the 16-ish minute mark because that's where I start building the card and where it would be more appropriate to talk about that. But so we're gonna kind of do it in reverse, where maybe we do story time while we're coloring, and then we have our lesson, if that's what we're calling it. So as far as life goes, it's Groundhog Day. Like every day is Groundhog Day. Just because we got two kids. It's in school time, so there's always that constant routine. We both work, so we're just kind of doing the same thing over and over again. Miss Caitlin's making some leaps and bounds, so she's been actively crawling for probably a couple of months now, but she is now pulling herself up to standing pretty proficiently. She's getting pretty good at it. And so it's not going to be long, I don't think, until she's cruising and then walking, and then we'll never be able to sit still. Right now she likes quite a bit being a free range chicken. That's what I call her. And being not penned in, and just kind of like when I'm cooking in the kitchen, she likes just crawling around on the floor where I'm at. We do sometimes have to remind her that she can't eat the things she finds on the floor. So like if there's like grass or something the dogs bring in, I gotta make sure she's not trying to consume it. But mostly she's pretty good. She's a pretty happy girl. Peanut has the same feelings about school this year that he did last year. And I'm not really sure why he doesn't like school so much, other than the fact that, like, he can't just do what he wants to do whenever he wants to do it. But, like, dude, you're going to have to learn that lesson, bro, because that's life. Very few individuals get to do what they want to do whenever they want to do it. So, yeah, but otherwise we've been good. I have been kind of messing around a little bit with my sketches again. I used to, I didn't really do anything with them. I would just like doodle while I was at work, or when I would be on the phone sometimes I would, draw doodles. And then they just kind of expanded from there. And a couple of Mother's Days ago, it's been a while, Eric bought me an iPad because, like, I had my sketchbook, but I had no way to turn them into a digital image. And I didn't know how. To be quite honest, I'm a Android, not an iPhone, iPad. I'm not an Apple person. That's basically the gist of what I'm saying. And so I didn't really know how to kind of make those things happen. Years ago, I may have told you guys this previously, and I apologize if I have. Like when I was in school, when I was in high school, I wanted to go to college for graphic design. And I went to one school, and looked at the cost of the program, and that was that. I have some regrets about that now later in life, considering where we led. But also my previous career, which I still do part-time, was very fulfilling and led me to a lot of other opportunities and to my husband ultimately. So I don't have a lot of regrets in that regard, but I do wish that younger me would have been like, stick with your art, do it. But anywho, after talking to my friend Jen, she had made the suggestion, because I was having a really hard time just straight drawing on the iPad. It's a different pressure, it's a different feel, and I wasn't having really great success with it, and I was getting frustrated. And so she had made the suggestion to take a picture of my sketchbook and then use it as like my bottom layer and then just draw on top of it. And that was game changing for me. Like absolutely brilliant. Because it gave me the opportunity to kind of already have done it, and then so the flow didn't feel as unnatural. And so I was able to, for the first time ever, turn one of my sketches into a digital image. And I was thrilled about it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I printed it out and colored it because coloring, yes. But super excited to have that as kind of something else that I've learned in, I don't know what I'll do with it, but something, maybe. I'm not sure. Anywho, back to the card. So I chose, in the beginning, I thought that I was just going to do some kind of greens, different green color combinations, and once I got to this larger spray or swag, I realized that there was a lot more leaves and I needed to add in another color. And for that, I chose like some blue greens. And then I'm going to use those blue greens to also kind of overlay some of the yellow greens. So I end up with 3 different tones, 3 different colors of leaves. But really, I only used 2 color families. And I'll mention that a little bit more once we get to that. But so, yeah, that was good. I think that it's important to learn new skills all the time, to just always be learning things. My friend Dawn and I joke about like the reels on Instagram because we both feel like, oh man, it's another thing to learn. And I still have not by any means mastered it, but I have gotten a couple. We have a few people on the Honeybee team who are just amazing at the reels and they totally rock them. And maybe someday I'll get there, maybe someday not. But Yana Smakula, who is brilliant in all things design and also brilliant in the way she handles her business. Like, just smart girl. And we've had some conversations in the past, but so what she has been doing, which is fantastic, is she has been turning her photos into reels so that they get pushed in the algorithm and more people are seeing them. Even though it's just a photo, it's because the way that she edits it, it turns it into, it's like the still image of that is a video, and consequently Instagram can't tell the difference between, if it's because it's a video file, it can't tell the difference that it's not actually moving, that it's just a still photo. And yeah, so smart, so super smart. But anyway, there's all kinds of things like that you got to keep on the up and up, or learn a new skill. I'm a big fan of that too. I like learning new skills. Eric teases me all the time. You want to know all the things about all the things, and I do most things, not all the things. Like, I don't want to know about football, much to my husband's disappointment, I'm sure. But there are, I do think it's important to kind of keep growing as a person, no matter how old you are, because it gives you new things to be excited about. So here is where we're going to do that color glazing. I've just chosen my mid-tone, and I'm going to go right over 2 of those yellow-green leaves in this arrangement, and then I am going to go over just 1 of the leaves in the other arrangement, just so they're kind of matchy-matchy. You guys know how I roll. I like for things to be pretty matched up and look cohesive and like they go together. So now that that's done, I'm going to finish coloring up the leaves. And then I just wanted to show you, I know that these are smaller images. I shouldn't say smaller. They're really good sized. But because there's so much packed into the stamp, the images inside are very detailed, but maybe a little bit smaller. And I think that this can sometimes be challenging. I like to color lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest, but sometimes that can lead to trouble with bleeding because you're just putting down so much ink in such a small area that they can possibly bleed out. So for this, these 2 flowers, I did just want to show you that you don't necessarily have to do, well, you don't have to do anything that I do. Let's be real. It's not mandatory. This is just the way that I do it. But I wanted to show you that it would still blend and it would still look very nice if you only did darkest to lightest. If you're having a trouble with bleeding, I have seen a couple of comments here recently where people have been asking about that. And most of the time, if you're having trouble with bleeding, it's because you're being too heavy-handed with your marker. On some occasions, you will have a marker that is overfilled, in those cases, just take the other cap off. Take both caps off, and it should keep it from kind of leaking all over the place until you can use up that excess ink. But if it's a regular filled marker, it's not overfilled, it's not leaking ink, and you're still getting the bleeding, you're probably putting down too much pressure on your nib. You don't need to push very hard with your markers. So I outlined them because that's what I do. I like a bold black outline, and then I'm going to cut these out. So Honeybee's dies are pretty close. I know several people have asked about, like, why is there any white outline at all? Because it would be impossible to line up your die with your stamps and not cut through your image if there was no white outline at all, because you can't see. The metal blocks it. And then I cut out, this is the largest layer, largest inside layer from the Layering Vintage dies. And now that I kind of have all my pieces parts, and now we're going to talk about the card design. So first things first, this design, anything that is a center design is going to work, is going to be balanced, okay? If you're putting something directly in the center of your card with equal spacing on all the sides, it's already balanced in and of itself. Here, I tried putting the larger swag on top, and it looks very unbalanced. It looks top heavy. So simply by just turning the card and now putting the larger portion at the bottom, it gives it a better balance, that it's heavier on bottom and lighter on top. Here, I'm using these. I adore these. Honeybee has a whole bunch of like these inside sentiment sets for different things. This one, the sympathy ones, that sold me on it, because I never know what to put on the inside of a sympathy card when somebody has lost a loved one. So this makes it super easy. They have some really great ones. And I knew that I wanted to combine the script sentiment with one of the inside sentiments for the outside of the card, because again, I need that balance. So I have all of this white space. I cannot put just this teeny tiny little sentiment in the middle with these larger floral swags, because it's not going to look balanced. And the label is anchoring my two swags. It's making it so it looks cohesive and like one complete piece. I need those to be anchored because I don't have a large sentiment. If I had a large sentiment to put in between them, it probably wouldn't have been a very big deal, but these ones are smaller, and so consequently I need to anchor the two larger images and then fill in that space accordingly. So I have the what does this say? I can't even remember what it says, with sincere sympathy. And then I also picked one that fit well within the shape of my label, which is the thinking of you during this difficult time. I started on white and I didn't love it. And so I moved over to this, I think it's plum colored cardstock. I liked that much, much better. I felt like it gave the card a little bit more oomph. And now I'm trying to figure out how to arrange the sentiments. I already know by looking at this, because there is some gapping in between the sentiment, that I will need to fill this in with some sort of gem, jewel, sequin, something to make it flow better. So I already know that, and that is okay. That's, honestly, why there's so many, and Honeybee has really great ones. The ones I ended up using today are the Marvelous Moments gem stickers, and there's just a bunch of beautiful fall colors. So I'm going in, I'm adhering down my sentiment to try to fill in those sections. I got a little excited apparently and pushed that one a little bit too hard, and it kind of slid. But that's the benefit of liquid glue. Liquid glue is it doesn't dry immediately, and it gives you a little bit of wiggle room, and I'm here for the wiggle room because I almost never nail it 100% every time because I'm not perfect. So I did scoot up the bottom sentiment a little bit to kind of help fill in more of that space. And then when I'm adhering the swag, you're going to see this first time, I make a little bit of a mistake, and I make mistakes all the time. I like to share them with you so you can learn from them. But so while I was pushing it up and I was so concentrated on the bottom portion of it being on the card, you can see that the bottom swag is up higher on the left than it is on the right. So I need to fix that so my whole image doesn't look off kilter. So I got the top one straight, and now I'm looking at it and I know I need to turn it. Again, another benefit of liquid glue. It did start to dry just a little bit, but not anything that was too crazy. So I was able to pull it up, and then I'm just going to adhere it right back over that same spot. So even if there had been a boo-boo, it wouldn't have been a big deal. And now I'm going to hold my anchor in place there, my label, and I'm going to get this lined up so that both of those teal leaves are even on each side and my image is straight. I toyed around with the idea of popping this up on foam, but the reality of it is that when they're going through these cards, and I'm sure they're going to have plenty of cards, I didn't want them to have to struggle to get it back into the envelope in the midst of all the other things they're doing. I don't love the white outline. This is not a secret. And typically the way that I get rid of it is by coloring it in with a Copic marker that matches. I started with an RV69 for this cardstock, and it matched pretty well. And I can see here that the camera looks like it matches exactly, but in real life, it was just a hair too red. I needed it to be just a little bit more purple. And so, like I've told you guys before, don't be afraid to kind of mix to get the tone that you need. So I started with an RV69, and then I ended up going over that with an RV66, which is just a smidge more purple, and then it matched almost perfectly. And so I was really happy with that result. As far as the outline goes, I colored the outside edges using this technique, but I left the inside white because my label is white. So I didn't go around the whole image with this, pretty kind of like maroon plum color, because it just wasn't, that wouldn't have matched the look I was going for, and I was trying to make it look like one solid piece so that everything, again, balanced, cohesive, it looks like a good solid design. So we're finishing up coloring that. I'm super happy with the way that this is looking, and again, putting it down in the center. Even though our swags are two different sizes, we have a very balanced design going on here in the center of our card. So I'm just going to adhere this down flat again, because I didn't want them to have to fight with getting the, anything that was popped up back into an envelope. That's, the purpose of my card is not to make their life more difficult. It's just to let them know that we're thinking of them and praying for them. So I'm going to adhere it down flat. And then the other thing that we're going to do in this video that is a little bit different than what I normally do is we're going to talk about creating for the inside of the card. I typically, these are those gems I was telling you about, these Marvelous Moments ones, and there is a super pretty, it's like an iridescent, but it's more like I don't even know how you describe a fall iridescent. It's like a pinkish purple, golden yellow. It's very, very, in real life, it's stunning, and it matched really well. And when I put my gems down, I am trying to create a flow through the entire thing. I need to fill the area, but I also need to make sure that it makes sense and is drawing your eye from the top swag down through the sentiment to the bottom. I am putting a little bit of shimmer on it because that's what I do. And then we're going to go into the making of the inside of the card. I almost never buy note cards. I totally understand people who do, but I typically do not. I typically make my own base. And so I cut a piece of 8.5 by 11 inch cardstock in half so that it is 11 by 4.25. Or if I'm looking at this one, it will be 5.5 by 8. Then I use a scoreboard, or I use my paper trimmer, either or will work because you just need a groove. To do my scoring, I've used Honeybee's Teflon bone folder here. It's a great one to use. It doesn't leave any shine on the paper. Then I fold it over. Well, you'll see. We're going to stamp first. And I chose 2 of the inside sentiments. I just stacked them together to convey the message that I wanted to convey. I do stamp them flat because I find that I get a much better result and I'm not fighting with like the other side of the card trying to like flap over, or if I have the magnet on one side, the other side's trying to raise up. So typically after I score them is when I stamp them. I did again stamp them twice because it is the first time that I am stamping them. I used black because it matched my outside card, like the stamping that I had done, but you could use whatever works for you. At this point, before you fold your card over, you need to make sure the ink is dry. You could just leave it out for a couple of minutes. I was obviously in the middle of filming, so I decided I was going to heat set it. If you choose to do this and you get a little warping, no big deal. Flip your card over, heat it from the back, and it should flatten out. In order to get my edges matched up, I like to kind of leave it bubbled up and match my corners. And then I gently push it down on the fold before going over it with my bone folder to make sure that it's good. And then I will adhere my card front to it. In this case, this is just real talk. Card fronts photograph better than full cards on bases because they lay flat. And I have not taken my photos yet, obviously, because I'm still in the middle of making the video. So I put some repositional adhesive on it. You would obviously use your regular, real adhesive, but I needed to be able to take it back off my card front. When I am putting my card front on my card, I always line it up with a seam on the left-hand side, or if I'm doing a top folding, I line it up wherever the seam is. Because if it's not perfect, you can always trim the edges, but if you line it up with the edges, you cannot trim the seam. So those are my couple of tips on this particular card design, in card design in general. How do I do the inside of my cards? If you guys have any other questions or you would like to talk about this more, just let me know. Leave me a comment below. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. I hope that you are having a wonderful weekend, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.